Okay, so for the next presentation that we have here today, I'd like to invite on stage. He is a 23-year-old, a serial entrepreneur that is an inspiring story and example to us all. So please join us on stage, please, Antonio Barbus.
I, for some reason, decided to use this rather than it feels cooler, you know? I'm going to be talking about baskets and eggs. People love to tell you to put... I'm going to just restart that one. I'm going to talk about baskets and eggs. People love to tell you to don't put all of your eggs in one basket. We've heard that before, right? It can refer to money, it can refer to time, it can refer to a few different things. I've been walking around, or maybe traveling around Europe, not the world, unfortunately, with all of my eggs in about half a basket and my shoelaces undone. I moved around 5 countries before I was 10 years old, and most of the time I didn't even know why we were moving. I just got told, pack your bags, we're going. We couldn't get a flight, so it would usually be in like a minivan taxi thing, and then we just moved to a new country. Just randomly, just out of the blue. So it was interesting, and did that quite a few times. So it was pretty much, started in Romania, that's where I was born. And just out of nowhere, it's like, okay, we're leaving, pack your stuff, we're going to a new place, new country, new school, new language, new people, new culture. Everything was brand new. And then we ended up in Italy, and here's the thing, it didn't get easier. Right? By the time I got to Italy, I'd already been in Romania, Greece, and Serbia. And it didn't get easier. You think the more times you do something, the easier it gets. But I think with something like moving around, it definitely doesn't. Because every time I moved, it felt like I was just getting dropped into water, but from a higher level. So every time I was just landing a little bit deeper. Now I was learning how to swim better, but it was definitely more difficult as time went on. Especially when I turned 15. I was in the UK already, I think 5 years at that point. We basically moved around every 2 years. And then finally had some stability, right? I had some stability for the last few years, made some friends, like actually had real connections and real relationships. And then it was like, okay, we're moving to basically 2 hours away. We're still in London. London's huge. And moved to a completely new zone. So I landed in the water again, but this time it was even deeper. I was stuck between basically just having to make a whole new set of friends and getting to know new people, which led me into kind of making the wrong friends, but then also balancing that with trying to still be good at school. And then, yeah, so that was that part of it. The thing that I have here is that's when my egg was split between being a good example and a bad example, maybe, is a way to put it. And somewhere in there, I decided to start testing my own depths, testing my own capabilities and kind of getting creative. I studied engineering, and I taught myself, just for curiosity, I taught myself how to build a battery from a PDF. I just didn't want to buy the book, and I was like, I'm going to download a PDF and just build a battery, because why not? And then ended up building some other crazy stuff. This is 100% legal, I promise. Only 8 horsepower on an electric bike. So I'm a bit crazy at times, maybe. I do crazy stuff. And I even decided, well, I didn't decide. It was actually a bit of pressure. I didn't believe in myself, so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna drop everything I've done up to now. I was doing a little business, making some money. So I went to do an apprenticeship, an engineering apprenticeship at Amazon, which I got bored of quite quickly, to be honest with you, and ended up in a startup by a lot of coincidence. Everyone's been talking about meeting the right people, having that right conversation. There was a lot of conversations that I had that got me to this point where I met a guy called Scott. He's still here. Remember that name, because there's going to be some more stories of that. But anyway, so point is, I was 21 by this point. I just wanted to try things. I was just very curious, always loved learning, and yeah, just liked doing different stuff. And I'll wind back to just this slide here. Yeah, so just this last year, I was 21, I think. But if I go back to 18, before anything I did mattered, essentially, which I don't know if it does to this day anyway, but it doesn't matter, I decided to go to a tattoo studio and tattoo a clover on my hand. I consider myself very lucky, despite a lot of nonsense that's happened in my life, and I'm sure in everyone else's. But I had a dream, and I wanted to pursue it. And why the hand, right? My mom was very angry at me. She said, no, you can't put stuff on your hand or your whatever, right? You can't have tattoos I can show. And I was like, I don't care. I want to follow this dream. It's a dream that I have. So, and I wanted it on my hand because it's the one thing that you can never not look at, right? You always look at your hands. And it was, and it was every wrench that I turned, every battery that I built, every hand that I shook, whatever it was right there. It was a constant reminder. It wasn't, for me, it wasn't a tattoo. It was the reminder of a dream that I had. There was nothing existed. There was no company. It was just me with some delusion, just basically saying, that's what I want to pursue. And then we get to, May 2024. Scott decides to call me basically every single day for the month of May, saying, he's American, I'm gonna not try to do his accent, maybe a little bit. Man, you gotta get over here, this place is amazing, Valencia's awesome, we're gonna build something. And I was like, dude, you're insane. At this point, I'd already left the startup. I started doing my own consulting business and making some money, had some contracts, whatever. I was doing okay, right? Paying £1,000 for a room, but that's London for you. And he kept insisting. He kept calling me every single day. And then one day he touched my ego and he was like, I'm gonna pay for your ticket. And I was like, nah. I'm a strong, independent man that's making his own money, so I'm gonna get my own ticket. And I came for 4 days. And I remember, I obviously had to go to the cheapest hostel that there was. And I was basically in the hostel bed on the third day, on the night, just kind of like sitting there thinking, I've got to leave tomorrow. And it didn't feel good. Bearing in mind, I've never, ever, ever felt at home because I moved around so much and never had a place to settle. So I was like, this place feels really good. Like something just clicked. So I started looking online. I did some quick napkin math, terribly, and booked a one-way flight, essentially. I keep clicking the wrong button. This was, I forgot to switch to the slide, but this was first coffee in Valencia. Oki knows about the good coffees. Not all coffee is good. Anyway, so I booked the one-way. This was my suitcase. Obviously, I had my climbing shoes in there, and Timberlands. Why would you bring Timberlands to Valencia? I have no idea. As you can tell, I had no idea what I was doing. I think I've worn them once, and they're just taking up space. It's just too hot, but I didn't know, you know? So yeah, anyway, so I knew that I just kind of said, screw it, whatever, I'm gonna move to Valencia. The worst case, which wasn't really an option in my mind, was that I'd just go sleep on my mom's couch. Not that I wanted to do that, but anyway, June 13th, 2024. And when I arrived, I mean, how many of you came here without speaking the language or knowing anyone? I'm just gonna assume basically everybody, okay? And when I came here, I had the exact same problem. I mean, I knew Scott, but he was no help because he doesn't speak Spanish, and neither did I, so I was like, I can't be in this country without speaking the language. So I could have sat home and complained, or I could just download Meetup and just go to events basically every single day. I would go to events with my phone in my pocket, locked and loaded, Google Translate ready, and I would just approach a random group of people. Hola, soy Antonio. And they'll just start speaking to me really fast in Spanish, because Antonio, right? And I'll just kind of pull out the phone like, what did you say? I didn't even know how to say, what did you say? And they're just kind of, okay. And there was a few times I got dirty looks. I kind of like, oh no, what am I doing? But I just never gave up. And the whole goal was learn Spanish because there was the dream that I was pursuing, which is Clover. If I can click the right button, it would be amazing. So anyway, eventually I got back to zero. So I spent the summer in Valencia. So you can get carried away in the summer here in Valencia because the arrows are the wrong way. The arrows are the wrong way. Okay, cool. So summer in Valencia, I came with a couple of grand in my bank account. I said, whatever, YOLO, I'll figure it out. And I had planned for me a good couple of months, but I burnt through that money way faster than I expected because summer in Valencia, I mean, meetup events every day. I got carried away. So I basically burnt through my cash like a drunken sailor, and I had to go get a job. I didn't even have a social security number. I was like, I don't even know how to do that. And the padrón, God forbid. So anyway, I had to get a job delivering pizzas. So I did that for a little while to keep the bank balance safe to some extent. Never has been. But then my driving license ran out. So I was back to zero essentially and had to figure it out from there. So just again, I got thrown into the water again. It's just this constant, come to the country, okay, you've been dropped in, you're trying this new thing, you're moving into this new place, you don't know anyone amazing. Oh no, now you have the language barrier. Oh, now you have no money. What are you gonna do? So that's essentially the short version of the story. It's much longer, probably much funnier parts too. But the thing is that it just never got easier. Every depth needed a little bit more from me than the last time did, but that is just simply how you learn. You only know how to handle this depth because you survived the one before it. So every time we try something new that challenges us, it's something that helps us grow, essentially. And at the start of the year, I experienced one of my deepest waters. I would say I lost a very, very close family member. 3 days before I signed the lease on the shop. So you can imagine the colossal stress and problems that was going on there. Especially when you're signing a shop in a country that you have no idea how leases work. It's a new country. The law is very different from what it is in the UK. So anyway, it was the deepest water that I was in, and I'm still wading through it. And I would love to tell you that the bet that I took on Valencia to launch this arguably crazy business, very, very passionate about the business. I could say that it paid off, but it hasn't, not yet. There's still nights that I stare at my bank account or the calendar and think, is this really worth it? Because, oh my God, the arrows. Because I could have stayed at Amazon. I was 18 making almost 40 grand a year. Crazy money for Amazon. I pay a little bit too much. Maybe less now with the problems that they have. But anyway, so I could have stayed at Amazon. I'd probably be, I don't know, 6 figures by now as an engineer at Amazon. Life would be great, right? But on those nights of doubt, and fear, because that's at the end of the day what it is, when you sit there and doubt yourself, it's because of fear. I do the same thing every time, and I look at the Clover that I tattooed on my hand, because that reminds me, it brings me back, it snaps me back to, it makes me relive the last 6 years in one glance. It makes me relive the building batteries at 3 a.m. I see myself getting the first payment from a customer. I see myself designing the first logo. This is a chopping board in Nando's, by the way. I also was cooking chicken whilst building batteries. Not at the same time, just. Anyway, so I see the first logo that I designed. I see myself signing the first contract. I see myself buying a one-way ticket, coming to Valencia, getting up on stage in various places with barely kind of speaking the language to some extent, getting the first investment check, painting the shop with my bare hands, handing over the first bike, and then seeing strangers ride around the city on something that I've been dreaming of since I was 17. So that's what one glance does. And for me, it's a tattoo. It doesn't have to be a tattoo. It can be just, a picture that you put up on a wall, a thing that you write. But the most important thing is, and I've gone way off script here, but it's okay. The most important thing is that you have a constant reminder of what that dream is and that you chase it. I've gone so off script, I lost exactly. So why not was one of my biggest things, is like, why not just keep trying? Whenever I had those moments of doubt, it was always just why not? I would look at this, remind myself of what was going on, and then just keep going. So I lost the script, but it's okay. Dreams don't get killed, they get buried. So the whole point of my thing here is just remind yourself of that dream constantly and have a constant reminder of it. For me, it was a tattoo on my hand. For many of you, it will come in many different forms. but you have to at least on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, if you can, remind yourself of that dream. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck in this comfort where you go and get the salary, you go and whatever, but deep down, it might not be exactly what you want to do. And I think some of the stories that we've had today, you can just see that they just said, all right, I'm taking all of my eggs in one basket, and I'm just running away with them. So my dream was and is, is to move people. And tonight, I hope even just a little that I moved you closer to your dream. If I can click the right button. Oh, this was, I totally forgot about that slide. This is what happens when you put all of your eggs in one basket. This is when you say, why not? And this is what happens when you say, screw it. You move to a new country, you make something out of nothing. This is our first delivery that we had of bikes, and now we have over 100 of them. And to me, just looking back at it, I'm like, how the hell did we do this? And so many people come up to us every single day almost and say, how did you manage to do this? Because it was, to some extent, impossible, especially in the market that we're in. And we just didn't give up. We just didn't give up on the dream and the mission. So find your dream, find your mission, and I hope I moved you closer to your dream. Don't forget your dream.